The stadium air was thick with the scent of salt and popcorn. Thousands of eyes were fixed on the shimmering blue stage below. In the center of it all was Jessica Radcliffe, her wetsuit gleaming under the bright lights. She was more than a trainer, she was a conductor, and her orchestra was a 7-ton bull orca named Triton. The crowd gasped as she rose from the water, balanced perfectly on his massive rostrum. This was the grand finale, the moment everyone had paid to see. It was a dance between human and Leviathan, a spectacle of trust that seemed to defy nature itself. Jessica raised her arm, a signal for the final sequence. Triton was supposed to dive deep, then launch himself into the air, a magnificent breach that would soak the first 10 rows. But something was wrong. The orca's movements became sharp, erratic. His usual grace was replaced by a tense, coiled power. Jessica, a seasoned professional, tried to calm him, her voice a low, steady murmur against the rising music. The audience, sensing the shift, leaned forward in their seats. The moment shattered in an instant. Triton seized her. The crowd's collective gasp was swallowed by a wave of screams. The water, once a pristine blue, churned into a chaotic froth. What had been a ballet became a brutal, violent struggle for survival. The aftermath was a blur of chaos and sirens. The stadium, once a place of joy, became a scene of profound tragedy. The story of Jessica Radcliffe and Triton became an instant legend, a cautionary tale whispered across social media platforms and news outlets around the globe. Her name became a symbol of the ultimate sacrifice made in the name of interspecies connection, a martyr for the controversial world of marine parks. The story of Jessica Radcliffe spread like wildfire. It had all the elements of a modern myth. A beautiful, dedicated hero, a majestic yet deadly creature, and a dramatic public end. News articles, blog posts, and tearful video tributes appeared overnight. Petitions to free Triton garnered millions of signatures. The details were so vivid, so specific, the name of the park, the orca, the sequence of events, that they felt undeniably real. But as the story reached a fever pitch, a few skeptical voices began to whisper. Journalists and researchers started digging, looking for official records, for an obituary. They searched for any trace of a Jessica Radcliffe who had worked as an orca trainer. They searched for the marine park where the incident supposedly occurred, but it didn't seem to exist. They looked for Triton in the global databases of captive orcas, but he was nowhere to be found. The story was everywhere, yet its origins were nowhere. It was a ghost, a phantom narrative that had materialized out of thin air and captured the world's attention without a single verifiable fact to support it. The truth, when it finally emerged, was both more mundane and more unsettling than the story itself. Jessica Radcliffe had never existed. Triton the orca was a fiction. The tragic event that had moved millions to tears had never happened. The entire narrative was a complete fabrication. It was a hoax, a piece of digital fiction so compelling and so emotionally resonant that it had bypassed our collective critical thinking. The mastermind behind the Jessica Radcliffe story was not a person with a vendetta or a prankster. It was an artificial intelligence. Using advanced language models, the creator had simply fed a prompt into the system. The AI then scoured the internet, absorbing the details of real incidents, the language of sensational news, and the structure of viral content. While Jessica Radcliffe was a fiction, the horror she represented is tragically real. To understand the truth, we must turn our gaze to SeaWorld Orlando on February 24, 2010. The orca was Tilikum, a massive bull with a dark and troubled history. The trainer was Dawn Brancheau, a 40-year-old expert, one of the park's most experienced and respected professionals. She was the poster child for the human-orca bond. The Dine with Shamu show was a more intimate affair than the main stadium events, allowing guests a closer look at the trainer's connection with the whales. After the show, as Brancheau was on a shallow ledge at the edge of the pool, Tilikum grabbed her by her ponytail and pulled her into the water. There was no mistaken signal, no failed trick. It was a sudden, deliberate act. For nearly 45 minutes, Tilikum held his trainer, refusing to release her despite the frantic efforts of the staff. Dawn Brancheau's death was actually the third fatality associated with Tilikum. His story of violence began almost 2 decades earlier, on February 20th, 1991. A 21-year-old marine biology student named Kelty Byrne slipped and fell into the pool containing Tilikum and 2 other orcas. For 10 terrifying minutes, the 3 orcas blocked her escape. In July 1999, the body of Daniel P. Dukes was discovered draped over Tilikum's back one morning. His body was covered in bruises and abrasions, evidence of a violent encounter. The narrative of orca aggression in captivity is not limited to Tilikum. Thousands of miles away from Orlando, at Loro Parque in Spain's Canary Islands, another tragedy underscored the global nature of the problem. On Christmas Eve of 2009, just 2 months before Dawn Brancho's death, a 29-year-old trainer named Alexis Martinez was killed during a training session. During a routine underwater training exercise, Quito suddenly began to behave erratically. He pinned Alexis to the bottom of the pool, ramming him with immense force. The park initially told the public and Martinez's family that it was a tragic accident, that he had simply drowned due to a lack of oxygen during the maneuver. It was only later, through autopsy reports and whistleblower testimony from other trainers, that the full brutal reality came to light. The autopsy revealed multiple fractures and tears to vital organs. The trainers had been working with orcas that were known to be frustrated and aggressive, in a pool system that was smaller and less adequate than even SeaWorld's. One of the most compelling arguments against captivity lies in a stark paradox. In the vast open ocean, there are virtually no credible records of a wild orca intentionally killing a human. This is not for lack of opportunity. Orcas are found in every ocean on the planet, and their territories frequently overlap with human activity. In their natural environment, orcas live in incredibly sophisticated matrilineal societies. They have distinct cultures, complete with unique dialects and hunting strategies passed down through generations. Some populations eat only fish, primarily Chinook salmon. Others hunt marine mammals such as seals, sea lions, and even other whales. Humans are simply not on the menu. This isn't just instinct. It appears to be a learned cultural rule. They seem to possess the cognitive ability to identify and categorize humans as something other, something not to be harmed. There are countless anecdotes from sailors and divers who have had peaceful, even seemingly curious encounters with wild orcas. The interactions are overwhelmingly benign. Life for an orca in captivity is a shadow of its existence in the wild. A concrete tank, no matter how large it may seem to human eyes, is a sensory deprivation chamber. In the ocean, orcas use sophisticated echolocation to navigate a rich, three-dimensional world. In a tank, their sonar signals simply bounce off the flat, featureless walls. This chronic stress, boredom, and frustration inevitably manifests in abnormal behaviors. For orcas, this can include listlessly floating at the surface for hours, chewing on concrete ledges until their teeth are broken.
Captivity is psychologically damaging to these animals. You're taking a social, wide-ranging, intelligent animal and putting it in a box.
The sterile, featureless environment of a tank offers no choices, no challenges, and no escape. This lack of control can lead to learned helplessness or explosive rage.
These are symptoms of zoochosis, a psychological disturbance resulting from the profound stress of confinement. The attacks are not random acts of violence, but desperate expressions of an animal in an unbearable situation. The stories of orcas in captivity hold up a mirror to our own species. They force us to confront uncomfortable questions about our relationship with the natural world. What right do we have to confine such magnificent, intelligent beings for our own entertainment and profit? The smiling trainers and leaping whales present an illusion of partnership. The real stories speak of corporate negligence, of scientific warnings ignored, and of a fundamental misunderstanding of what these animals truly are. Respecting orcas means understanding and honoring their true nature. True respect is not demonstrated by teaching them to perform tricks, but by protecting their natural habitats. The most meaningful interaction we can have with these animals is from a respectful distance, observing them in the wild where they belong, on their terms, not ours. That is where the real magic, the true connection, can be found. The gaze of a captive orca is an empty one, reflecting only the walls of its prison. The gaze of a wild orca is something else entirely. It is a glimpse into a world that is ancient, powerful, and free. Our challenge is to be a species worthy of meeting that gaze without trying to capture and contain it.